Welcome to today's Brand Origin Deep Dive, where we unearth the hidden chapters of iconic companies. You've heard of the brand, seen its sleek products everywhere, but do you know how a period of intense internal upheaval led to a cavernous warehouse storing forgotten dreams and slightly off rainbow logos? It's a story less told, shrouded in corporate silence and literal dust. If you find value in this kind of storytelling, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, or your own memories of this brand from the 80s. Let's dive in and discover how it all began, or perhaps how it almost ended. You step into a cavernous, dimly lit storage facility. The air thick with the scent of decaying cardboard and old plastic. The unmistakable smell of corporate history left to molder. Row after row of forgotten prototypes, sealed boxes labeled with cryptic project names, and decommissioned servers stretch into the darkness like silent sentinels guarding lost futures. This isn't a museum. It's a tomb of corporate memory. A place where potential timelines lie buried. You came searching for a different story, one of triumphant invention, of garage startups exploding into global phenomena. But the dust motes dancing in the sparse light guide you down a different, unexpected path. A stack of warped marketing materials from the late 1980s catches your eye. Specifically, a peculiar, slightly off-center rainbow logo peeling from a battered crate. It seems to hum with a silent tension, a palpable sense of something vital missing. You follow this faded print, this peculiar breadcrumb trail leading into the very years the brand's vibrant core seemed to vanish. This archive marks a major historical turning point, specifically the beginning of a period brand historians still debate whether it was a necessary contraction or a near-fatal identity crisis. It's here the legend faltered, where the soul of a burgeoning empire was put to the test deep within its own walls, represented by the unsettling quiet and the oddly printed artifacts. Section 2. As explored in the previous phase, the journey began with raw, creative energy. Now, you move deeper into the brand's history, finding shelves lined with products you barely remember, or perhaps never knew existed. The Apple III, the Lisa. These aren't the heroes. They're the ghost products, machines burdened by ambition, but often hobbled by internal strife and technical compromise. You pick up a heavy, beige manual for one of these relics, its pages brittle and smelling faintly of forgotten potential. You read excerpts detailing features nobody really wanted, or perhaps features locked behind price tags only Fortune 500 companies could comfortably afford. Imagine paying thousands for a single software license today. This era marks a major turning point, the immediate aftermath of Steve Jobs' departure. There's a palpable shift in the corporate culture. The pirate ship attempts to dock and become a professional, buttoned-down organization, shedding its renegade roots. But this transition leads to early strategic missteps, most visibly in the commercially unsuccessful or internally problematic products released during this time. The brand core, once vibrant and clear, feels uncertain. There's an emotional shift too. The earlier, almost naive confidence gives way to early market confusion and internal doubt. You see the symbolic thread of the distorted logo reappear on internal memos or burly packaging mock-ups, looking increasingly fractured, reflecting the internal disconnect. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind some of the technical compromises and market positioning of these products. This period subtly foreshadows key personnel conflicts and a growing gulf between engineering, marketing, and leadership, a rift that will widen before it heals. The clinical, almost sterile look of these business computers feels miles away from the friendly boxes that came before. Building on what came before, the confident stride falters. You walk into a different kind of warehouse now. Not one of bustling innovation, but a graveyard. Aisles stretch out, filled not with triumphant products, but abandoned peripherals. Failed ventures into printers that didn't print well, cameras nobody bought, and yes, even an attempt at a clothing line you wouldn't be caught dead in. It's the late 80s and early 90s, and the center truly cannot hold. Stacked high are the ghosts of internal communication. Memos in harsh, urgent typefaces scream about plummeting market share. Desperate brainstorming sessions devolve into panicked calls for drastic cost-cutting. The creative buzz is gone, replaced by a deafening silence. This is the era of accelerating decline, marked by internal power struggles that saw CEOs like John Sculley rapidly replaced by Michael Spindler. Then Gil Amelio. The company loses its market relevance as cheaper, more open PC systems gain ground. The brand core fragments, scattering across a dizzying array of unfocused diversification attempts. This proliferation of failed products is a stark sensory detail, proof of a corporate identity crisis bleeding into existential dread. The symbolic thread of the distorted logo is everywhere, slapped onto bizarre product concepts, sometimes missing its vibrant colors, looking utterly desperate. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind ventures like the Apple Collection clothing, a quirky, lesser-known detail that perfectly illustrates the strategic confusion. This period foreshadows a complete loss of core technological direction, hinting loudly that the search for solutions will soon point outside the company walls entirely. Following the brand's earlier foundational steps and initial successes, you enter a different kind of space. This section feels heavier, laden with the weight of unrealized potential. You stumble upon shelves dedicated to software, but it's a graveyard of delayed dreams. Discs for System 7, once the cutting edge, now feel ancient, their interfaces a relic of a bygone digital era. Next to them sit remnants of ambitious projects like Copeland. Internal initiatives meant to deliver the brand's next great operating system. Prototypes that promised a revolution, but instead became cautionary tales of overreach and cancellation. It's here you find it, a dusty Newton message pad prototype. You pick it up, surprised by its unexpected heft, a solid block of plastic and defunct circuitry. Its screen is utterly unresponsive, a dark mirror reflecting nothing. This tangible deadness underscores a major turning point, the brand's struggle to innovate its core operating system, and its missteps entering new markets like PDAs. You can almost hear the hypothetical sound of a failed software installation loop, echoing in the quiet room. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind pouring so much resource into projects like Copeland only for them to implode. The emotional shift here is palpable. It's one of technological stagnation setting in, a creeping obsolescence compared to a world moving ever faster. The symbolic thread of the fractured logo might appear now, perhaps as a static screensaver on a defunct machine, or a watermark on faded project proposals that went nowhere. This era wasn't just a lull. It was a desperate plea for radical change, a clear foreshadowing of the need for external help, perhaps from an unlikely source. You locate a few boxes marked Next Acquisition. It feels like rummaging through someone else's attic, filled with stark, black Next cubes that clash visually with Apple's previous designs. Inside, alongside dense technical documentation, is a folder of initial integration plans. You read through them, and the air feels thick with the weight of bureaucracy, yet also the sharp edge of impending change. Some pages detail hopeful synergies, but others are starkly honest, revealing deep suspicion and resistance from within Apple itself. This isn't the triumphant return you might have imagined. It's a brutal, often messy corporate surgery. Proposals leap out, plans to kill off popular but unprofitable product lines, sparking outrage you can almost hear echoing through cubicles and online forums. This period, leading up to and immediately following Steve Jobs' return via the Next Acquisition, marks a painful restructuring. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind some of the swift, deep cuts, wondering if the shock therapy was truly necessary or overly harsh. The fractured logo you saw before now begins to be overlaid with something new, the dark, minimalist aesthetic of Next, creating an uneasy juxtaposition, a symbolic thread showing the difficulty of reconciling the past with this stark, uncertain future. It foreshadows the personal cost of wielding such power and the challenging path ahead. Welcome to today's Brand Origin Deep Dive, exploring the story of a company that redefined technology and culture. You've held their products, seen their stores, maybe even dreamt of their devices. But do you know how a brush with death and a radical shift in philosophy transformed a struggling computer company into a global phenomenon? This isn't just a history lesson. It's an examination of resilience, reinvention, and the echoes of a past that shaped our present. If you find value in this kind of storytelling, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from or what Apple product holds a special place in your memory. Let's dive in and discover how it all began. Section 2. The Garage and the Machine. You stand in a dimly lit, cluttered space. Cardboard boxes, circuit boards, the scent of solder. This is where it starts. The story begins not with sleek aluminum, but with wooden cases and handwritten labels. In this cramped garage, two Steves and a Ronald are piecing together circuit boards. You witness the birth of the Apple I, a hobbyist's dream, and soon the Apple II, which brings computing into homes and schools. This is the first major historical turning point. The personal computer becomes accessible, intuitive, and, crucially, visually appealing with color graphics. The brand takes its first bold step, disrupting the monolithic tech giants. A quirky, lesser-known detail from these early days? The Apple II was one of the first personal computers to display color graphics, thanks to a clever engineering trick involving television signals, making it uniquely appealing beyond hobbyists. Brand historians still debate whether the decision to initially keep the Apple II's architecture more open than later machines was a moment of naive idealism or a pragmatic move essential for early adoption and growth. The air in the garage is thick with possibility, a stark contrast to the corporate boardrooms Apple would later inhabit. Section 3. The Revolution and the Exodus. Building on what came before, you enter a different scene. It's the early 1980s. Bright lights, the hum of machinery, and a buzz of creative tension fill the air. The major historical milestone here is the launch of the Macintosh in 1984. You watch the iconic 1984 Super Bowl commercial, a bold, defiant statement against the established order. The Mac is a revolution with its graphical user interface and mouse, truly the computer for the rest of us. But behind the revolutionary facade, internal conflicts simmer. Steve Jobs is eventually ousted in a power struggle. This period sees a string of less successful products and a loss of direction. A quirky detail? The original Macintosh team, in a nod to the machine's personal nature and their collective effort, famously signed their names on a sheet that was then etched inside the case of every early Mac. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind many product decisions during this era, including the high price points and reliance on proprietary technology, which limited market share despite critical acclaim for the Mac itself. The mood shifts from revolutionary zeal to corporate confusion as the brand searches for its identity without its most volatile co-founder. Section 4. The Wilderness Years. As explored in the previous phase, the path forward grew rocky. You now find yourself in a period of struggle, a corporate wilderness. It's the late 1980s and early 1990s. Apple is adrift. Product lines become bloated and confusing. Printers, cameras, even a gaming console called the Pippin. A quirky, lesser-known detail that highlights the brand's desperate search for relevance. The company bleeds market share and money. This is a period defined by a looming crisis, culminating in a major historical turning point. Apple is on the brink of bankruptcy. Desperate, they make a fateful decision: acquire Next Computer, the company Steve Jobs founded after leaving Apple. This isn't just a tech purchase. It's the return of a prodigal son, a move shrouded in uncertainty. Strategic experts still analyze how Apple managed to secure crucial funding and make the Next acquisition work, bringing back the very person who had been forced out years earlier. The atmosphere is one of survival, the polished veneer of the past, replaced by the grim reality of dwindling resources and a fading identity. You feel the tension, the doubt hanging heavy in the air. Can this once great innovator find its way back from the edge? Section 5. The Rebirth. Building on what came before, the atmosphere begins to change. The air thins, growing clearer, more focused. Steve Jobs is back, initially as an advisor, then as interim CEO. His immediate impact is ruthless simplification, slashing product lines, cutting projects. The major historical turning point of this era is the introduction of the iMac G3 in 1998. You see it for the first time, a translucent, colorful, all-in-one machine that looks utterly unlike anything else. It connects via USB and relies on the internet, a bold bet on the future. Marketing gurus often debate whether the design-led approach, championed by Jobs and Johnny Ive, was the true driver of the comeback, or if it was simply Jobs' ruthless focus on simplifying the product line and rebuilding the core OS. A quirky detail from this time is the initial skepticism from many tech journalists, who scoffed at the lack of familiar ports like the floppy drive and questioned the bright colors in a beige world. But the public responds. The iMac is a hit, signaling that Apple is not just surviving, but beginning to reinvent itself. The fragile recovery is taking root, powered by design and a renewed sense of purpose. Section 6. Ghost in the Machine. You stand before the iconic, colorful iMac G3, a stark contrast to the beige machines surrounding it, remnants of a past era. Then the first iPod appears, sleek and white, a design marvel that shifts focus from the computer to personal media. The archive shifts again, revealing rows of later, more familiar products. MacBooks, iPhones, iPads, the symbols of a radical transformation. This final section reflects on the powerful reinvention that followed, the reemergence of Apple as a cultural force, and the lasting impact of its near-death experience. You feel the smooth plastic of the iMac, the cool metal of an iPod, recalling the faint memory of the click wheel sound, sensory details that grounded this new era. It's not a simple comeback story, but an exploration of the scar tissue left behind, the products lost, like the Newton or the Pippin, the people who left during the lean years. The culture irrevocably changed from garage startup to global titan. Philosophers of corporate identity ponder whether the sleek, monochrome logo, which replaced the fractured rainbow, represents a loss of soul or a necessary evolution for streamlined focus. This shift, from playful color to minimalist silver, is the symbolic thread culminating here. A quirky detail from this era of intense development. The extreme secrecy surrounding new products became legendary, with teams often working in isolated buildings, highlighting the company's new, tightly controlled culture. The emotional shift is palpable, from fragile recovery turning into powerful reinvention, but with an undeniable undertone of the cost paid, the compromises, the parts of its original identity left behind. The lingering question hangs in the air: whether the soul of the original company survived the transformation, or if the current iteration is something entirely new, haunted by the nearly fatal years. The mystery persists. What was the true cost of this corporate resurrection, and what parts of its original identity were permanently left behind in places like this archive? The echoes of the past fade, leaving you with the sheer scale of the transformation. From a garage project to the brink of collapse, and finally to unparalleled global success. The journey was fraught with brilliant innovation, painful missteps, internal strife, and a relentless drive for reinvention. You see the physical products, the tangible symbols of this saga, but you also sense the intangible legacy, the design philosophy, the ecosystem, the almost religious devotion of its users. The cultural symbolism is profound. Apple became more than a tech company. It became a lifestyle brand, a statement of identity. The lessons learned from the near-death experience are etched into its DNA. Focus, simplicity, control. And maybe, just maybe, the soul of a brand is never in its product, but in the people, stories, and stumbles that shape it.